reasons why I wanted you on is because I feel that you are solving, so far from my experience, one of the biggest problems in the real estate industry. And it is that retention side. And it's just so brokerages are so, um, and I don't know why yet. And maybe I need to speak to more brokerages or do more of these podcasts or whatever it may have you. But it's like they're so focused on recruitment. And I'm like, well, the name of the game in actuality is transactions. And so it's like, if you're not getting that agent to produce, then what is the use of recruiting them?
Well, you know what also, Cameron, which I don't know if you have in there, but I've created, and I don't want to do my history because I think that's boring as hell, but I will give you my little story in the beginning, how I got into this. But other than education, which when I was at that Fortune 500, I had to prove efficacy of my programs. They tracked me and I had to show growth. So when you work for that kind of, company, and that really pushed me in a way I never would have done that on my own. But the onboarding piece too, we can ask about that. I've been creating onboarding platforms for brokers when they recruit, but it really is for retention. And I can share how that turned into a retention tool too. Well, nice to meet you, Cameron.
Nice to meet you too.
Cameron, I met my husband, who is a builder, in college. And much to my parents' chagrin, I moved to Connecticut from New York and started helping him. He was hired to build subdivisions here by a developer. So he was the general contractor who got the houses built. Never used my degree once, which was interesting, and ended up selling over 12 subdivisions over about 15 years. So we had 12 subdivisions, over 1,000 units. It was a crazy time. And everything from residential, I loved rehabbing factories, to luxury homes, to condos, to homes. So that was my jam. But that wasn't making me really happy. I loved teaching. So I went back to school and just went to a community college and learned about instructional design and adult learning theory. And I applied what I learned and started writing courseware, and it exploded. That was in 2000. And for the next 12 years, just built courses and had a really great time. A lot of brokerages hired us, associations. And the beauty of it at the time was I didn't charge a fee, I charged per student. So when they started using my content, we got a little piece every time a student took it. That was a new model, but it was very effective for us. 2009, NAR asked me to rewrite ePro because of a tweet I sent out. And that put me on the big map. Like, NAR asked her and her partners to write a course for $1.5 million.
Wow.
From there, started getting recruited by people who loved that I had real estate background and leadership education. So that's how I ended up with Better Homes and Gardens and ERA Real Estate, running their learning. But when I was there, I was able to launch tech products. And when you're at an amazing company like that, you have everything at your fingertips. So I had the Cadillac experience of bringing tech products to market to my agents.
Wow. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing today. So that's what the, remind me the company name.
It's called Curated Learning.
Curated Learning.
And it's helping companies figure out how to launch, onboard, and engage, whether it's a tech company or a real estate brokerage.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, that's so I love hearing people's stories on how they got into the industry. And it's such like a unique path. And it's very interesting. What was your you said you didn't even use your degree. What was your degree in?
Art therapy.
Art.
And I wanted to do fabric design. I was in Providence going to school, and I was taking other courses at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, because I saw myself as a fabric designer. But that didn't happen.
Your husband is like, no. We're gonna build some homes. We're gonna.
Well, when you're young like that, I don't think this will go in your podcast, but I had my life planned out. I wasn't going to even start looking for a man until I was 28. Here I am, 20. I meet this guy and I'm like, do I let him go because I have a plan? And that's what I meant about my parents' chagrin. So I'm still married to him, which is a good thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, when you were building the courses, were you actually doing the web development, or you were just like leading like project management with the courses and more like problem solving and connecting the I would say like the courses to solving those problems?
Thanks for your question. When I first started, you have to remember, we were back in 2000 when I actually started all of this. We weren't putting courses online. I was creating courseware and I was doing train the trainers. So I had a facilitator guide, a student guide, and slides, and any of the ancillary materials. We started putting courses online in about 2000, and I'm going to say 7 and 8. That's when I hired all my tech people, and we started doing very basic courses online, and it was very basic compared to what we have now.
Yeah. That's so you were the first Udemy?
I
So to
think
say?
we started, yeah. And you know, it was interesting when we were working on the course with NAR, the ePro, watching how they instructionally designed a course also added to my experience, because one of the things I learned early is that you write to learning styles. I learned that there's 4 learning styles, and if you write your content in what I call a loop, you cover the 4 learning styles. What happens is everybody learns, because I was teaching a lot of technology at the time. So when I went live, I would have, uber geeks in the class who knew everything. And I'd have people who were afraid to touch a keyboard or a mouse because they didn't know it had 2 buttons, that kind of thing. At the end of the class, the people who were really scared of technology were comfortable and like, I think I can do this. Yes. And the uber geeks would say, wow, you taught me 1 or 2 things I didn't know. I didn't do that. All I did was do the 4 learning styles. And that's really my secret sauce.
I know that that's not one of the topics in the document that I sent you, and sorry if this is putting you on the spot, but could you give me an example of that?
Sure. So with learning styles, they're not personality styles. They're how people learn. Now, you've probably heard of audio, kinesthetic, visual. This is different. This is, some people learn because they want to know the why. If you tell them the why, and this is adult learners mostly, you teach them the why, they will buckle down and listen once they understand, okay, I get it, I want to learn. The next group of learners are the what. These are the people who will just want to like suck your brain. They want to hear everything you have. They're writing copious notes. If you miss paragraph 3 on page 4 in the manual, like you miss page, they will never go look at their notes again, but they learn by literally just taking your information, and then they've got to process it. The third group is the how. Real learning happens between the what, the data dump, and how it's implemented. The how people are like, okay, you know what, enough, I get it. Just let's do this. Let's get this done. Those learners love it when you do exercises and breakouts in class so they can start, actually seeing it working in their own business. And then the last group is the what if. The what ifs are the people who will come up with scenarios that don't make sense. Like, well, I get what you're teaching, but let's say that there's 90, like they'll come up with stuff that doesn't make sense. So you have to learn how to manage that group. They were always the bane of my existence in my classroom. But and you teach in 20-minute cycles. An adult can absorb learning for 20 minutes. So they say, there's a guy called Bob Pike. He's big in the learning field. He says 8, 20, 90. Every 8 minutes, you need to do something to engage your client, whether it's clicking on a button, saying yes, something. You have to complete a topic in 20 minutes. So why, what, how, what if? You got to do it in 20 minutes. And in 90 minutes, which is, a class, you can cover, how many topics? 3, 4. And that's as much as an adult can absorb.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's interesting, but that And what's interesting too is the way the different clients react. Like the Y person hates drama in the classroom. Oh my God. They get nervous when people are confronting the teacher. They don't like group activities. They like the things where they're doing the things on their own. They're the person who will not ask a question in the class, but when you go for your break, they'll follow you into the ladies' room. Go on. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but there's personas with learning styles.
Right, right. No, the reason why I ask is because, so I know like today when it comes to marketing, I know that there is an educational, what I'm starting to see is that how companies in the B2B space and B2C space, like one marketing strategy that they're leveraging is let's ungate all of our content and let's make it very, let's put out all the insight that we have in order to attract our target audience and ICPs.
Yeah.
And so there's an educational and entertainment element to that content in order to build that brand awareness. And so that's why I asked, because like the educational component of it, do you see similarities in that? Like, do you see any similarities in like, okay, like in order to put out a podcast, in order for every single one of those types of learners to really consume everything from that podcast, you have to hit that why all the way to the why, what if?
No. Thanks for your question again. I think that's more dealing with the generations that we're working with. It's more generational to me. And content today, we have gotten so used to quick, short. That's why all content is what I call chunkable, digestible content. So you're seeing that. Within all of that content is where I would be putting the flow, but I wouldn't make it so complicated. But so you're really looking at two things. It's modality of delivery, how we're getting the content, and how people learn. So mine is way in the background. It's how I develop a course. And once I have a course, it could be delivered live. We could video it and chunk it down into like chunkable, digestible pieces they can listen to. It could be an on-demand course. It could be anything. And that's the beauty of creating a course outline in that way.
That's that's so interesting. And I know the podcast wasn't even about this, but anytime I hear anytime I hear anything that has to do with the behavior of humans and how they consume, like I'm very fascinated on that, because I feel like that's the holistically, I think business is a reacting machine to human behavior.
Yep.
And so, yeah. And so like when it comes to marketing and getting people's attention and really having them engage with that content, I feel like it has to do with something with those four learning styles of how people consume, if it's educational content. And so obviously entertainment is a completely separate thing, but so what you're saying is if I were to take this podcast that we're about to do, you would break it up into the chunks of information that they are learning. You would break it up into the why, how, what ifs, and what to do with that content.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's, oh man, that's, I love learning
Now,
stuff like that.
one step further though, like we're doing promos. We're doing a webinar in September for brokerages on recruiting, retention, and all of that. We're doing promo videos. The promo videos are going to be, it's going to be 2 minutes, and it's going to be why, what, how, what if. It's going to be all of that, but in 2 minutes. Like, why is this important? This is what we're going to teach you. This is what's going to happen when you get there. And imagine if you had this, how much easier life could be. See?
Dang, that's
See
crazy.
It? And you know what? This is good for sales calls. It's good for everything. It ties in with another topic that's very near and dear to me called change management. I met a gentleman when I was at Anywhere. He had an MBA from Harvard on change management. He put a layer on anything we did. Think about, we're off topic again, but let's say you're trying to bring a new concept into a group. You have to understand where they're coming from and how to emotionally get them excited and motivated to make the change. Change is hard. The change management is really a secret sauce. I will do a shout out to a gentleman named Matthew Ferrara, who's a good friend of mine. You should definitely put him on a podcast. He helps me with that all the time. We layer change management when we talk about creating content for the tech products, or let's say a brand is launching a whole new suite of products. Like, how do you get people to use it?
Yeah.
This is
That's
quite
very
deep.
interesting.
It's quite deep, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love this stuff, Amy, because again, like I feel like this is the core of marketing and sales, which is what I do. And so, and it's crazy that you're talking about change management, because I'm in the process of rereading a sales book right now. And that's the first piece of that book. And he was talking about change management and how you do that from a salesperson's perspective.
What book is that?
The Gap Selling by Keenan.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah. He's Amy, he's good. I've read lots of sales books. I've seen lots of sales courses, and he's one that I'm like, this is legit. Like what his methodology in sales it's not a solution oriented sale. He's going at it from a problem perspective. And so he goes in there and he is searching for what he calls the gap. And this is the current state of the company and where they're at. What are they doing to produce the results that they're not satisfied with? That's their current state. What's the business impact of that for them? And then he goes to their future state. Well, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish, right, as a business? And when it comes to this component of your business, and then whatever that gap is, he quantifies it. And then, he quantifies both the current state and the future state. And then he just quantifies the delta. And so, and then he comes in there and he's like, all right, cool. Well, what we're going to do X, Y, Z to make up that difference. And then we're going to get your company from here to here.
Does he base it on data, and does he create ROI? You know, what are how is he going to measure his success? Does he have all that in there?
Yep. Yeah. So he produces, so he's a sales training coach. He goes into corporations and he gets the whole sales force on the same methodology. And so they can increase their, their close rates and all the metrics that salespeople keep track of. And then he aligns that with revenue for the company. And so, yeah, I love it. And that's why I'm saying, like, the stuff that you're talking about, I think it's the core of that, because what it is you're reacting to humans. In order to react to a human, in order to influence a human, you have to understand the human and how they think, how they learn, all the different ways that they think and learn, how emotions are tied into it. And so there's like so much like human behavior and psychology that goes into marketing and sales, and just I would say like product development as well, that it's just a fascinating, like, my girlfriend always makes fun of me. She's like, if you were in the room with a bunch of psychologists and neurologists, like, you wouldn't leave. And it's because I would ask them so many questions about humans just to try to understand how humans consume.
I have someone else you need to interview. You're going to have to really cut this thing up. She is a neuroscientist who has proven with brain scans how dopamine impacts people and all the other things that are in your body. She is a therapist for people, but she helps salespeople understand. If you understand that the brain science, you can get people to love and trust you and sell more products. She's really cool. She mostly has spoken to CPAs, financial planners, attorneys. Those were the groups that she's out in California. Actually, she's in Santa Barbara.
Oh, wow. That's super cool.
Really interesting woman. Her name's DC McGuire. You should definitely interview her sometime. She's been amazing to talk to.
100%.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so switching gears a little bit. Amy, so in the real estate industry, you, and then correct me if I'm wrong, so like you have you do consulting for brokerages to increase their retention?
Yes, retention and help them with onboarding new agents so they also stay there as well.
What have you seen the biggest challenges that brokers are dealing with when it comes to, I would say, agent recruitment and the retention of these agents?
Couple of things. When agents are brought on, if they don't understand everything you have, whether it's the culture, who do they go for certain things? How do you expect them to act? What is the process of training and process to learn everything about the company? If you don't have that all laid out in a frictionless way, they flounder. Now, if it's a more experienced agent, they go in at a different level than someone who's newer to the industry. But it can be, who is the leadership? Who do you go to when you have an HR problem or you have a legal issue? Like, is that all laid out? What are the tools and systems that you have at your company that you want them to use? And how do they bring that to the table with the client? What are the gaps in that person's skill set? And how do you support them to grow those? And, sometimes you can bring people on that may or may not be the right fit for the culture for the company. That's another thing to watch as well. So that's the first part. The second part is looking at a company and doing a quartiling of their brokerage, meaning dividing into 4 quartiles the agents. So I have 4 quartiles. One is the top agents. That's usually only 3% of a company. And that's whether it's a company of 30 agents or 3,000. It's usually, that's like the national average. So you look at all those agents, you look at when they're productive, what month, and this is a very easy form to fill out. You can see their productivity. You can see the breakdown of their business. Then your next group is what I call the solid citizens. Those are the people who are not your top producers, but they are loyal. They are consistent. You can rely on them. How can you support them better? So you put that out. The third group is what we call the up and coming. These include people who are 100-hour pilots, where they could do something wrong and crash and burn. You think about that. Or, slow but sure. So who are those people? And then the last group are people that are just not doing it. It could be people who you need to fire. It could be people that you need to get them on a beta program because they have potential, you just haven't figured it out. Or you might need to put them on a referral. So for example, I worked with a company, we did the quartiling, and once you see it, you're like, oh my God, I see the holes of what I need to do. So this particular company, we created an onboarding day where the leader came in, talked about who they are, the culture, who you're supposed to talk to. We interviewed the IT people, the reload people, like all of that. We talked to them on all the processes of the company. So anyone that comes in now, they've got a manual, it's online, and they know where to go for things. So it really encouraged, as they're onboarding people, people are getting to go faster. We also saw they had holes. So we did a program, a recharge program for that last quartile. And out of that group, after that program, they let some people go. They put some people on referral, and they found some hidden gems that they really needed to work with and coach with. So that is an example of some of the things that we do when we go in and talk to a company.
Yeah. Dang, that's so interesting. Do you see any patterns in, like, when you're speaking to brokerages? Do you see any like reoccurring, I would say, gaps? Not only within those, you call them quartiles, within those quartiles, but like, do you, not only the quartiles themselves, do you see like a lot of brokerages, it's the second and the first quartile where they have the problem, or sorry, this question's kind of confusing because my brain's jumping around so much. Or within those quartiles, do you see like reoccurring problems?
Yes. So the question is, do I see tendencies or patterns when I do these? Absolutely. And with the top percent, if 30% of a company's business is coming from 2 agents, you got a problem.
Mm.
So that is sometimes you don't really know what's happening until you look at it. And then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, and there's ways to solve that. The next group, they are getting recruited incessantly. That's where you have to make sure that you have open conversations with these people. One company I actually worked with that group, every time they got a recruiting letter or some kind of asset, if you brought it into the office, he paid you $25. And he had a board on thing, and everyone had all the letters. And some of them, what was interesting, it was the same wording to all the different agents. They're like, oh, I thought I was special, that kind of stuff. But he had such a great culture
Mhm.
that, he still lost people, but the people were like, oh yeah, look. So
Mhm.
they get recruited like crazy. So you have to be really careful and finding out what their needs are. They're not top producers for a reason. So
Mhm.
what skill sets do they need? Sometimes it's technology.
Mhm.
Sometimes they need someone on a team. And I don't mean building a big team, but maybe they need a team or they need support. Or if they're in the average age of a realtor, they may not be really good with the tech. They just need someone to get down there and do all their marketing and their tech so they can stay out there where they need to be. But
Mhm.
you can start seeing that as you look at their numbers and who their clients are. And I can't explain it more than it just like opens up. I think I already explained the bottom quartile. That third quartile, this is the scary thing with them. The up and coming, because they're going at it, they're going on appointments, they're doing stuff. Leadership sometimes like, oh, they're okay. They're not okay. They act like they're okay because they're motivated, they're great people, but they need check-ins too to make sure that they're doing the process right, so that you don't end up with a lawsuit or someone who crashes and burns because you didn't stay on top of them. So
Mhm. Mhm. Dang, that's so interesting. I would love if you are open to this, Avi. Could you let me see. And again, sorry for putting you on the spot, but my curiosity is going. What's the perfect brokerage to you? Like if someone were to come to you, Amy, and was like, I got money, I got resources, and I really want to I want to say dominate in this, I would say, like, let's say it's one of the competitive markets, Miami, LA, New York, something like that. And I see these issues that you're talking about. Amy, I'm gonna let you and whatever team you select to go crazy. Do whatever you wish when it comes to operations, when it comes to recruitment, retention, do as you wish. What's your game plan?
okay, that's an interesting question. I People that are doing it, I see their faces right now on my mind, right as you're speaking.
Mhm.
That the leader needs to be a success story on their own.
Mm. Mhm.
They already had to have had some kind of success because that's what attracts people. I want to be like that leader. For example, I met a young leader in the Miami market. He was 30 under 30. He already retired his parents.
Dang.
This guy now has an amazingly large team. He's created a community website
Mhm.
where, which is great because he's young, he understands technology. So all of that communication that is needed with a company is all in this community platform. The platform's called circle.io. It's off the shelf product, but
Mhm.
he has recordings in there. He has an area where people do referrals or talk about their problems. He does coaching in there. Now, his team, it's not just him, but he has the right leadership that are coming in with the right skills. So many of us. So anyway, that I love. So that to me, he's doing it right. And not all his people are his age. He's got quite a few people, 40s, 50s, 60s. But the platform is so easy to use and it's so frictionless and friendly. Like they're killing it. And I
Mhm.
actually have the honor of being on his platform because I worked with him for a little bit. I consulted with him. So I'm just watching him blow up.
Mhm.
I don't know if that answered your question, but the leadership, um, if you're coming from not having the skill set of knowing how to lead, your people need to know how to become good leaders. They need to understand emotional intelligence. They need to understand how to facilitate conversations and coach. What happens is a lot of us, myself included, until I went back to school, you get promoted from within and you may not have the right skill set. And as long as there's nothing horrible going on, nothing changes.
Mm-hmm. The brokerage that you would build, first off, it would lead with success. And so the leader, in whoever was the CEO or the team leader, whatever it may have you within the brokerage, they already, very successful as a real estate agent, because success attracts the agents. And so, and then I kind of like categorized what you said next, which was agent community. For agents to have a platform internally in that brokerage to where they not only can communicate with fellow, I would say, colleagues, but also vertically they can communicate to the brokerage like, hey, I either need help, or hey, what about, would you consider this change in the brokerage, this tool that I found, this, third party CRM, whatever. And so, and then you got into what I just categorized as like agent development. And so like having the coaches, having the trainers in-house to develop the real estate agents based on any sort of gaps that they're experiencing within their business now. And so like, obviously there's lots of things like technology and people and, structure that goes into that. But I believe that's what that's what I got out of what you said.
The one thing about someone who has success, they have to have, there are some companies where people sold just a little bit, but they had such a good business sense and a good business idea, and they knew how to lead, that's what people are looking for. Someone who can articulate who the company is, what their vision is, because people want to become part of something. And feeling that support from that company. Because as you were mentioning that, I was thinking about agents who became owners, but also just people who had great leadership skills and did the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Interesting. My brain is going over to like one of the biggest problems well, actually, let me ask this. Like, why do you feel that like brokerages, especially like the big ones, like you would expect like the KWs, the Century 21s, the Coldwell Bankers, like all those big companies who have all of these resources and all the tools for real estate agents to be successful, where's the disconnect? Why when they come in, it's like they do everything to recruit these people, and then they come in and it's like, all right, cool, figure it out. We have all the tools and resources for you to figure it out. And so just figure it out. And so like, do you know where the disconnect is?
As I look at the models, there's so many different models of real estate firms these days. I grew up and still am with a traditional firm.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other models out there, the online models like Real and EXP, amazing models. Keller Williams, amazing models. They all are serving a purpose. They're all filling a need, and they're marvelous. If the person who leads the charge at the company cannot articulate the value proposition of the company and cannot delegate to the people that work with them the systems and processes in an easy way so that the agents can be trained and kept abreast, that's where it fails. It doesn't really matter where you work. I know people change, but they don't change for a company. They change because of how they felt at the company, how they were supported. Think about it. Real estate agents, we are unemployed every day.
Mm-hmm.
We're always looking for work. It is a stressful job. I mean, it's all about creating your network and connecting with people. I mean, you've got to do everything. We need support to be able to do that. And there's so many other things going on in the industry now, of course, where we're going to be looking at a different compensation model for buyers. Honestly, I think the bar is almost too low to get into this industry. Mm-hmm. And people will say, I go, why did you get into real estate? Oh, because I love selling houses. Okay. Let's see how long that lasts. I will say I was very blessed when I started to have a very strong training when I started, and I still use stuff from 35 years ago. How I was told to make phone calls, how I was told how to prospect, how I was told how to hold an open house. Of course, I've enhanced those things and made them in this century and made them, I've always grown, but that's what's missing. I hope I didn't pontificate too much there.
No, you're good. So my background, I actually ran a real estate media company where we did all the drones and photos and videos for real estate agents. And so like, obviously it's just me and the real estate agent there. And I would always ask them about, their business and like, how could we improve the media side and things of that nature. And the conversation would always lead into some sort of business problems that they were having. And so I think you're right. Like them being an entrepreneur, which I feel is what they are. They are, contractors of the brokerage. They're running their own business and they're responsible for all of the components that make up their business. And so like, with that being said, it's a very like, I would say like lonely path. And when you don't have that support and you don't have that guidance from anybody, it's easy within a brokerage. It's easy to think that like, oh, it's the brokerage. Like there's something wrong with this brokerage. And then they hop to another big name brand and they're like, well, I'm not getting it here. And it seems like if they were to take just a second to think about what it is, like, what are they looking for within the business?
Well, to be fair, and I'm in chatting with you. So for example, let's say it's sometimes you outgrow where you are and you get to a point where you need a company that's really doing what you need best. So for example, lead generation, there are companies that do lead generation for their agents and agents pay and they have to get into these programs. Sometimes people really want to be there or they want to do their own and the company has conquered the technology behind it. And it really depends where you are in your your career. I will say there is another company that I know of. It's a real REAL team, and they hired a community manager to manage everything. This person makes sure that all the agents are doing okay. This person does all their comms, so their social media. They're not like in the operations side. They have people that are handling, deal doctoring and all of that. But they have this person who keeps their ears and eyes to make sure everything's going, because the leader is just going super fast. So there's always solutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, the because I know the lead generation aspect of real estate is a big topic of discussion. I'm like in those Facebook groups often of like real estate agents, and I swear, Amy, like every single week I hear that it's questions about, hey, like my sphere of influence dried up. Like, is there any lead generation that people are doing right now? And like, I think sometimes, do you think it is the responsibility of the brokerage to not only train them how to go get business, but also get them business?
I think the training has to be solid, where however the broker feels business should be gotten is trained effectively. There are some brokerages who do lead generation for their agents, and the agents pay quite a bit for it. Their splits are very different. And if that's the kind of company you want to be with and that's what you want, go there. Those brokers do a really good job. Other brokers will do training, but it's up to you because you were hired because you have a sphere and whatever the aspects of you were. So it's very individual. It's kind of a broad topic.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it would be, and especially with all the different types of real estate agents, well, the handful of types of real estate agents, it would be tough to create, I would say, systematize the lead generation to a point to where it caters to each. And so, yeah. And so with that being said, like, it makes me think of a brokerage and let me ask you this, like, have you seen brokerages out there who specialize in just one of those types of agents? They're just like, we only deal with top producers. We have the tools for them. We have, everything to take them from here to here. Have you seen like specialty brokerages in that manner?
Sure. I think more like I'm thinking more of companies that I know that do pay to play. They pay for leads, whether it's Zillow, Realtor, all the other ones. They use products like Ylopo, Call Action,
Mhm.
and various products. I can think of two companies right now, and they make a good brokers make a good income off of all of those agents. The agents make a good income, but it's different than someone who's creating all their own business. So yes,
Yeah.
I don't see brokerages. Well, I'll take that back. There are luxury brokers who only want people to know how to work in that venue. Second home. Top agents. There are companies that are very picky on who they hire. They have to fit the culture, and if the
Mm.
culture is that top producer, so be it.